Good evening, everybody. Another nice evening. Although because it's November, it's starting to get rather chilly. In fact, tomorrow, the 1st of December, so we're coming into the Christmas season. So everybody's minds will be on, unless you're not a Christian. Although if you're Japan, you're probably celebrating Christmas even more than everybody else. Now this course of videos, and you can tell that I'm just having an ordinary mug here. It's not much taste, but at least it's a nice cereal company. And I don't get commission either for that. That's a shame, isn't it? So the end of times, we're going to have a series of about 4 odd videos. The first one will be the last one will be looking into the why creationists talk about 6,000 years. Why is it? Why do we have to be 6,000 years from Adam? There are some questions about it. And then Christian groups have mentioned certain dates because we're very close on that figure. Because if you add 1,000 years of Christ, then there's an assumption that a creative day could last 7,000 years. It sounds logical. So that's the last one in the series. The one before that is about the beast, 666. Now, this beast, I'll show you a picture or two about the beast in a moment. It's not the missus. She's not listening, so I'm all right. Let's hope she doesn't watch this video. Hopefully not. So the beast, there's a video on that. And then there's the rapture. Now, this is a teaching that came about and became more emphasis on it back in the 1960s. Here's a picture there we are. The rapture. Bit of light there, isn't there? But lots of Christians whizzing up to heaven, generally keeping their bodies. And off they go to escape whatever's going to happen. The Bible calls it the Great Tribulation. So what's the Great Tribulation? So that's the rapture. And then we're going to ask, when is it going to happen? Because we all want to know when it's going to be. Just like when we're waiting for a bus, we want to know it's coming. Hopefully it does. But this first video number 0, is called Why Do We Need a End of Times? Who wants an end of times? Well, sadly, if you look at the world's news, you can quite see that the human race is in a bit of trouble at the moment. Environmental, nuclear war, pollution, possibly. All these things are listed. So we're going to look at that in a minute. But in this particular religious group, the Jehovah's, they brought out a book called Revelation Climax. And in it, they mention that there's a man there, Jesus Christ comes to conquer the wicked nations. And then we've got a page over the page. What happens? That's Jesus with a sword coming out of his mouth. There's a video on that one, actually. And this one here, that I've done a video on that one, that's called Just As in the Days of Noah. This is here where Jesus is casting down a dragon. And now we've identified the dragon as Satan and his heavenly organisation that has control over the political nations. So there's this international war been going on between Almighty God and the devil and his heavenly organisation that also controls the earth. There was a beast I was meant to show you. Let's find that. Where's the beast gone? Here it is, the beast. So that's the beast, and it's pictured as coming out of a sea. Now, the reason it's coming out of the sea is in Isaiah 57, it says that the beast comes out of the sea of humanity. So it's kind of like a political expression. We know that because in Daniel chapter 9 and chapter 4, it talks about different beasts. One of the beasts mentioned was the king of Greece, Alexander the Great, in fact. So it's all very interesting. So, but what I'm going to highlight today, just briefly, because the question is, why do we need it? Well, a lot of people will say, well, if you're an atheist, you're not bothered because you expect that everything to possibly go bang, you know. But if you'd like a hope for the future, then it might be good just to find out. You see, the disciples, they were sitting with Jesus, and he was talking about the future, and he was talking about, they knew he was the Messiah. Not only that, they eventually understood he was the actual Son of God because of all the miracles. But they expected a Jewish ruler to take over Israel. That's what they were hoping. And this was their question to him in Matthew 24. Chapter 24, he talked about the destruction of Jerusalem, you see. And it says in verse 3, he says, while he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples approached him privately, saying, tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign of your presence and the end of the age? The end of the age they were thinking of was Jerusalem. Because if what Jesus had said was true, then their capital city was going to be destroyed without a stone left on a stone. He subsequently gives a whole load of signs that would happen in the last days. Now, of course, we know that he talks about himself returning. Like we saw a picture of Jesus on a horse, on a white horse with a sword coming out of his mouth. And that means that he would be returning. We know he didn't return, but he does return to the parallel account in Luke. This does apply for the apostles and the Christians living around that time, because he says in Luke 21, he says, verse 20, however, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by encamped armies, then know that the desolating her has drawn near. Then he gives them advice for Christians, which they did. In 66 CE, Jerusalem was surrounded by Roman armies, and then they quickly headed back to Rome. There was some kind of political problem. They headed back to Rome, and this was the advice that Jesus gave to Christians. He said, verse 21, let those in Judea begin fleeing to the mountains. Let those in the midst of her leave, and let those in the countryside not enter into her. And then it talks about a great tribulation that would come upon Israel, and of course especially Jerusalem. And we know that came upon that nation in 70 CE. So that was the fulfillment for the Jews or the Israelites. That was their fulfillment. That was their end of times. But you see, we want to know about it ourselves. So why do we want to know? Well, we want to know because we want to know whether there's a future for us. And if there is a future, what about the planet? And that's what this series of 4 or 5 videos is devoted to, in briefly, to give you a hope that there is a future. And Jesus, in fact, said, when you see these things starting to occur, lift your heads up, because your deliverance is getting near. So I hopefully you'll stay tuned, and maybe you'll subscribe. That'll tell you when the next one's on. The next one is only in about 3 or 4 days. So these are going to be reasonably close, so that you don't have to wait too long for the next episode. So thank you very much. Things are getting hectic here in this home. My wife celebrates Christmas, and I try to avoid it, as I will explain to you on December the 25th itself. Thanks again for watching.